Hello and welcome to the Deep 3 podcast. This is your host, Matt, joined as always by Kevin and Sam. How's it going, boys?
Hello.
Okay, gang, what up?
Sam, how was your ride home?
It was nice. No one sat next to me because they don't allow people to sit in the middle unless you have a family. So I'm like, thank God, don't sit next to me. TSA didn't give me trouble for once. It was phenomenal.
Fuck.
It was great.
Wow, win-win, really.
It's a win-win.
You know, I feel like if they did something to you, like now of all times, might work out badly for them. Oh my God. Anyway, we're all very tired, so why don't we just get into this? My question for the day is, it's going to be different. It's the same question, but worded differently for each of you two. So, Kevin, if you had to guess or say who the villain is, like we're in Marvel Comics, we're in DC Comics, whatever. Who is the villain of the NBA right now? You can use the commissioner, you can use the teams, or you can use individual players, so on and so forth. And if you want, you can you can say like, oh, this dude's like Dr. Doom or something like that if you want.
I think I like this. I feel like Katie and Kyrie right now is kind of like a seemingly villain, or what people claim to be a villain, even though you could almost make the argument they're more of like an anti-hero kind of person where they're like bad, but not bad. Like they just kind of do things selfishly.
Yeah, I could see that.
I'm trying to think of anything else or who they would be compared to as an actual villain, but I don't know. I'd say Kevin Durant's like Venom. Like he's bad, but he's not like
he's a snake.
He's a snake. And then Kyrie's just some random henchman because nobody likes him.
Kyrie's just another one of the
This is like a symbiote, right? They just feed off negative vibes. All right, that's a good one.
All right, Sam, who's the hero?
Hero? I mean, do we have to say it? The man in California right now, Los Angeles to be specific. No, not the Terminator. All right, King James himself. Okay, not the truth. Everyone who watched that Game of Zones, it's not Paul Pierce. All right, he's not the hero. I promise you.
It's not the hero we wanted.
LeBron was originally the villain. I think we all agree. Miami LeBron, everyone hated him because he was just too good. I mean, let's be real here. But he came back to Cleveland, won his title, redeemed himself, and now the King of LA.
Okay, I mean, King of LA is a very interesting position. I would think that this isn't like a Marvel or DC comic, but I would say that King James is probably more like a Baratheon. Like he's not necessarily a bad guy, or he could be considered a bad guy, but he's also kind of like a good guy. So not necessarily anti-hero because he hasn't really done anything super shitty, but at the same time, people love hating on him. So I think that's a pretty good comparison. All right, why don't we get into our updates? So the first thing that we're going to get into is the NBA proposes 22 team with a seed play-in if the team is within 4 games. I don't know about you guys, but this is probably one of the greatest things that could have happened to me because I was super, super nervous about the Pelicans not being able to play, and now they have a chance. So why don't we get into this? Kevin, how do you feel about, I guess, A, this entire playoff like function, and then B, would you be nervous if you were the Pelicans or the Grizzlies?
I like it a lot in general. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it is a really, really good step in the right direction. First of all, to just get basketball out there as soon as possible. I think my only beef with it, and even then it's not really that bad, is having 22 teams and then having regular season games with just those 22 teams. Like, I feel like it's kind of like shitty to have, again, regular season games without 8 of the teams in the NBA, like just kind of ignoring them. But that aside, I think it's really good. And I think teams like the Pelicans and stuff like that I think all those like 8, 9, even 10 seed teams that are in are going to be excited that they have a chance, that they have this that they could have 8 games to prove themselves, and they can win 8 straight. They could win 6 of the 8, maybe, or something like that, and they can get better and get a better seed and prove themselves. And I think a lot of the teams have the potential to do that. Blazers, Pelicans, Grizzlies. I'm excited.
That's totally fair. The one thing I will say about the whole shittiness, and Sam, if you want, you can back me up on this. The shittiness of like not having all of the teams playing. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to watch any more Chicago Bulls basketball. I don't want to watch any more Washington Wizards basketball. Not the Charlotte Hornets, not the Pistons, not the Knicks. You know what? I don't even want to see the fucking Suns. I don't want to see any of it. I don't care. So I guess my like position would be like, I love the idea of having 22 teams, because then you're kind of weeding out the boring basketball that nobody watches, because that was such like a big factor into the NBA season and why a lot of people stopped watching it towards like, I'd probably say like maybe like February, March kind of, because that's when things are starting to die down. And it's gotten to the point where everybody's just like, okay, this team's in the playoffs, this team's in the playoffs, this team's in the playoffs. There is nothing that they can do to change that. So I totally get it. It does kind of suck. And I definitely think that like the teams who aren't in this position should be able to do something, whether it be workouts, whether it be recruiting, I don't know, but they should be able to do something with the time that they're given right now. That, or maybe contemplate just not being a team at all. I mean, who the fuck knows? Sam, what would you have to say in the whole 22 teams playoff situation?
So I think the first thing to acknowledge is that of the 30 teams that voted, which is obviously only 30 teams, it was 29-1. Guess what the one team was, gentlemen? Your favorite Portland Trailblazers, the saltiest team in the NBA. Let's be real.
I feel like they are.
It just considers themselves always like undervalued, underrated. I'm like, the reason you're underrated and undervalued is because you barely make the playoffs most of the time, or you just don't make the playoffs. Once again, they did not make the playoffs at this point. Mm-hmm. I don't blame them, because based off what Damian Lillard's comments were, it was, we want an actual fair shot at it. Because even if they get within 4 games, right, the tournament would be between the 8th and 9th seed. If the 8th seed wins one of those games, they're in. Otherwise, the other team that's trying to fight for a chance to be in it has to win 2 games. So I kind of see where, like, you know, vets on those teams don't really want to compete at that point. Like, why go to Disneyland if you can't even ride the roller coasters, right? What's the point of that? You know, it's not even worth it at that point.
I like that. That's not bad. I like that.
But I think overall as fans, you know, I think we've all missed basketball so much. You can tell by our content, we've been stretching it a little bit. But hey, you know, that's how content works. But I think it's a great opportunity for at least some of the teams, such as like my Spurs, who have such a prestigious record of making it to the playoffs consistently year after year after year, to at least have an opportunity to maybe get into it. However, I do feel bad for the Pelicans in the sense that they had the easiest schedule, you know, to finish off the season. Like the last 16 games were like 9 or 10 of them were against below 500 teams, or just non-playoff teams. So now basically they have to play against 8 games against one of these 22 playoff contention teams. So I'm not sure how they'll favor the games. Maybe they'll just do it based off winning percentage, and they'll just make them play like Spurs, Suns, and Kings, like maybe 2 more times or something. But I don't know. I think it's good. I think it's a great start. Hopefully things, you know, follow up to our schedule.
I don't think there is a single reason why 22 teams is an absurd concept, mainly because I understand like viewership for the other teams that don't make it would be down, but viewership for the entire NBA actually might even go up, because now you're watching teams fight for the playoffs. You know, what was that game that happened like fucking a couple of years ago between what I think it was like the Timberwolves and who was it? It was like literally that game was the deciding factor into who made the playoffs or not. And I like that. I think that makes it interesting. I think that makes basketball as a whole a lot more entertaining to watch, especially in like the later season. That's probably the thing that's really killing those ratings, is when you're starting to get into the February and March and stuff like that, and everybody's just like, we all know who's going to make it. Why bother? You know?
I got a counter question for y'all. So even when we have these playoffs, it seems like it's going to be normal playoffs in the end, right? Because what they said, estimated Game 7 of the finals would be closer to like mid-October it would end. With that being said, teams 1 through 4, there's clearly no home court advantage because there's no home court. I heard a lot of ridiculous things that were proposed during some of the team meetings, be it fly in like the wood that they use on the court to change it every time. That was offered, or they get better accommodations at hotels. And I was like, okay, so you're gonna go from 5-star to like a 3-star, or 2-star like Days Inn or something. So I'm like, I don't know about that.
That's stupid.
But Kevin, what do you think as would be an actual potential way of having a quote unquote maybe a home court advantage? Some of these teams, such as the Lakers, the Bucks, they work their ass off to get about 50 to 60 wins. What do you think would be a great way as a way of getting advantage in the playoffs?
I don't know, because I feel like in my mind, home court advantage always comes from like your fans and your fans exclusively. It's not the wood on your court that gives you the advantage. And I think that's hysterical that they even tried to do that. I don't have a good solution for that. I don't know if we can get one easily. I think that proposed solution of like picking your teams that you would play, or like your draft of your opponents almost would be good, but I don't know. It sounds like they're not going to do that anymore, which I'm fine with. I don't think that's like the greatest solution ever, but I don't know. I don't have a very good simple solution in any way.
I think what we're hearing right now is that Miami is not Miami, but the Orlando Magic has the best home court advantage, and they're going to win the playoffs because of it. I think that's what we're hearing right now, boys.
Oh, yeah, you know what? Because no fans ever show up to their games anyway, so
they're used to it. It's fine.
Aaron Gordon, you heard me. Don't come on this podcast, all right? But I did hear.
No, please come on this.
I did hear 2 possibly logical approaches to maybe having advantage. So one thing was each team can designate one player to have 7 fouls, which is a little like 50-50, where it's like, okay, now I'm going to give LeBron James 7. And it's like, okay, well, LeBron's going to be a little bit more aggressive in that case. Or even 87, some like a big man gets into foul trouble more often. The other one was more doable, where home court can decide if they want possession to start off each quarter. So technically they would be given, there's a chance that they would get more possessions overall in the game. So basically they had to tip off. Whoever wins that doesn't matter, because second, third, and fourth will start off with being the home court team, essentially. Matt, what do you think about that? Do you think that seems like a plausible idea?
The foul thing, I think, is kind of bogus no matter what you do, because that just gives you a straight up advantage no matter what. Now, I was actually like literally just thinking about that when you were saying it, but I think having the deciding factor of like who starts with the ball, that's probably the best option. Maybe even like after halftime, you can decide it, but right then and there, that kind of kills the jump ball, which I mean, I don't personally care about the jump ball. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but like at the same time, that's such like an NBA thing. It's like it's like the NFL without having kickoffs, like it's just like it's been ingrained essentially to us that that this would be a thing. But I mean, you see that with baseball all the time, right? Like when you have a home game, typically it's the other team that bats first. But in this case, with basketball, you just start out with the ball first. The one thing I will say about that is it's almost kind of pointless. It doesn't really do much because basketball is such like a high scoring game that's just like, they're like, if they score a 3 or a 2 on that first possession, what exactly does that really do for them? It doesn't really mean much for them. So having home court advantage, I think choosing the team that you play against is going to be the best option, because anything else is either a little bit too much or just really doesn't make sense in the grand scheme of it.
No, that's fair. It's a good point.
Why don't we get into the G League? So Brian Shaw to be the head coach of the all high school G League team. So does that mean that the G League is actually more marketable than college basketball now? Sam, why don't you hit us first with that? And why don't you also explain who Brian Shaw is?
I was gonna say, like, if you don't know Brian Shaw, then you don't know Kobe, and you don't know Shaq. I'll tell you that. Brian Shaw is one of those vets. He was a bench writer, but he set up a very strong backbone for those Lakers teams. The man has like 3-4 rings now. Man played for the Magic I believe when Shaq was there as well. So I mean, this guy has a repertoire of being both excellent player, but also being an excellent coach. He's been assistant coach for many teams. I think at some point he was under Phil Jackson. Obviously, we know him from The Last Dance. Great coach. But I think this is a great idea. I think that this is a great platform for high schoolers because, I mean, let's be real. I think colleges obviously exploit these kids who have really strong potential. I get that there's like the college experience, and that's fine. If you want to go for that, you can go do that. I don't have an issue with that. But I mean, if you think you just want to go play basketball and you really don't care about the whole studying aspect of college, go pro. Like, go get your money, kid. Like, you've earned it. Like, you have the little physique for, being better at the sport. I would honestly support more players going to the G League than even going overseas at some point, just so that draft analysts can just do a better job of scouting out the players and getting it done right from the get go.
Yeah, definitely. I think we all agree on what Sam is saying right now. I'm pretty sure you would agree on this too, right, Kevin?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I guess like the biggest thing would be, I would love to see these guys actually get paid, have their own brand, have their own deal, whatever they want, coming out right out of the get-go. I mean, maybe like the only thing that deters it would be like maybe maturity, but I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people who come out of high school more mature than a lot of people who come out of college. So I don't know if that's really the biggest thing. And plus you could have financial experts help you take care of your bank account if you want, like make sure you're not doing some dumb shit. I think it's a lot more marketable personally than the college basketball experience. However, Kevin, let's say G League gets more viewership. What does the G League need to do, or can the G League even compete with March Madness? Because that's probably the only thing that I can really see college basketball having like the one up on. Because even March Madness like bleeds into the NFL. Like a lot of people watch March Madness instead of the NFL.
I think that's tough to beat. Because March Madness is just inherently like it's almost religious for
it is
people like that. Like every year around March, like I don't know, every place I've ever worked at like hands out brackets and things like that. Like even if it's not for money or anything, like you just know going into March that it's gonna be basketball centered and people are gonna be all about this college basketball tournament. So I think that's a tough hurdle to overcome. And I almost think you don't try and overshadow March Madness, but make your own unique mark. So don't do just the same kind of tournament around the same time of year, or something like that. Like that's
right.
You're not going to overthrow March Madness in a year. You got to come up with something unique. Maybe it is another type of tournament that's a little different formatted or something, maybe like a round robin or something like that instead of single elimination. I don't know. I have no idea. But I think there's definitely ways they can do it, but it's not going to happen immediately. And they got to really put a lot into it. And they really got to commit to the G League being what they want to focus on moving forward. And I think they can do that. They have the money and resources to do that. And if they do, I'm all for it. And I'm going to watch it regularly if they do that. But we'll see.
Definitely. I think the one thing that probably makes the G League more interesting than college basketball are the players who end up going to the G League instead of going to college basketball. So there's a lot of talent out there that G League teams are going to like zone in on. They're going to pick them up as fast as they can. So Sam, do you see more of these high school players going to the G League than college basketball? And if that's the case, do you think it kind of deteriorates college basketball even more than kind of where it's at right now, as far as like professional play and so on?
I think like first is off, we saw the number one recruit, obviously Jalen Green, go to the G League, which is actually a great start, right? I think that's an icon in terms of high school basketball, saying like, "Fuck overseas. I'm not doing the LaMelo shit. I'm not doing the RJ Hampton thing. You know, I don't want to. I want to be in America. I want to play basketball, but I want to make money. I don't want, to go to Duke and just be exploited and not get my money and my share for, bringing in the audience." So in that case, it's also pretty good for even recruiters and for, the G League, because there's no penalty for recruiting high school kids, because it's like there's no eligibility that's being ruined.
Yeah.
Whereas the NCAA puts these really stupid, criteria to limit players to either get money or just even talk to anyone, right? It just makes people very paranoid and very scared. For example, Gordon Hayward won a Halo tournament and had to ask Brad Stevens, who was his coach in college, to see if he can keep the money or even compete, just to see if it ruins his eligibility. And Brad Stevens like, I don't know, because no one's ever asked me this question. Luckily, obviously it didn't. But, it's these silly questions of like, oh, am I doing the wrong thing? What the NCAA always makes you feel is that you're doing the wrong thing. Always be with us, you're doing the wrong thing. And I think that's the wrong idea. The thing is, these high school players are doing the right thing by making the right rational decision that's for themselves and for their family.
Yeah, I also kind of think that this opens up the talent pool all around, because now you have players who are going to the G League instead of college basketball, which means that there are other players that wouldn't have even gotten like a second look, who may actually be able to produce something in college, like may actually have a chance to prove themselves or get better in college, where you have the exceptional talents like the Zion level talents or something like that, who decide to, make their dollar, make their money as much as they can. Not to mention that I feel like there are a lot of people who stay in the G League because they love the game so much, So it's actually like watching these players enjoy themselves instead of playing for a college team that, might not even make March Madness, might not even do that well, may not draw a crowd. Who knows? So why don't we move on to the next segment, Sam? Why don't you hit us up with the teams that need total reconstruction?
Welcome to Total Rehaul. Oh wait, you can see my face. This is awkward now.
That was lame. That was so bad.
Don't even talk about lame. All right.
Okay. All right.
All right. Guys, after this season, we definitely saw a lot of teams succeed, but we definitely saw a lot of teams fail. Notably, 8 teams that didn't make the playoffs. Some of those teams have potential. They got a lot of young stars that hopefully can make bigger jumps. As their career move forward. But some of these teams, they've just been having the same roster builds, or they keep adding pieces, and it's still not clicking. So, Kevin, what's the team that you need just to blow it up right now?
I have so many I could have chose from. I think I'm going to go with Minnesota Timberwolves. I obviously didn't make the playoffs right here. Sell Cat, get him out of there, get something for him, rebuild, polish it, get out of here, stop it. You've tried for so many years for the Cat-centered roster, and it's never worked. Get out. Dismantle your team. Total rehaul. Let's go.
Okay. So are you saying Cat is the issue, or do you think Cat deserves better?
Both. I think hear me out. I think Cat in the Timberwolves, the mentality with the Timberwolves is that they have to build around Cat, and I don't think that's necessarily the best idea. I think you bring Cat into an already established environment that already is good, and Cat just adds on top of that to it. I don't think he should be the centerpiece in any franchise, where the Timberwolves have wanted him to be that for so long, and they've forced it on him, and I don't think he wants that, or it would be perfect at that. I think he's an outstanding player. He's obviously one of the best centers in the league, but he could be so much better somewhere else, and the Timberwolves could be so much better if they got other valuable players instead of him.
That's fair.
That's fair. And I think the issue there is that they have a very young coach, Ryan Saunders, son of the late Flip Saunders, genius coach. So I think it's really hard for some of these young coaches to kind of bring in superstars. It kind of brings in the whole LeBron, Eric Spoelstra kind of like beef, where it's like, I don't really respect you because we're like basically the same age and I'm still playing basketball and making more money than you. But Matt, what's your team?
So I'm going to go with a more controversial pick other than the lacking Timberwolves. I'm going to go with the 76ers. So they're not, like, don't get me wrong, it's not that they're having a bad season. They're still in the playoff mix, and they're in a pretty good spot in the playoffs to begin with. However, the biggest hype around this team was we're going to make it to the finals. Like, obviously, this team is going to make it to the finals. That's not really happening. I don't know about you guys, but I don't really see that working out for them very well. The biggest problem with this team has always been centered around Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. It's with both of these two playing together because they just can't figure it out. They can't figure out getting a good rhythm, especially because Ben Simmons doesn't shoot the ball. And whenever he does, it's always a layup, a dunk, something along those lines. So then you're asking yourself, okay, well, where does Embiid fit into all of this? Do we need him to shoot more threes? And then he does shoot more threes, and he makes a decent amount, but I don't know if that's what you want Embiid doing necessarily, especially for the fact that Embiid is such a health risk, right? Like, what was it, last playoffs or even the playoffs before that? He had stomach problems like up the ass, man, literally. Like, it was bad, and for whatever reason, he just kind of can't stay healthy. So this team, Tobias Harris, he's not working out for the team. He's not doing that well. They tried adding more pieces into it. They tried getting Josh Richardson, and he was fine, but definitely not as well as you probably wanted him to do. And Matisse Thybulle, I would like to see more from him personally. If I were the team, I would probably fire the head coach because, he's trash right now. He's been promising championships for the longest time, and he's trying to do whatever he can, and it's not working. It's not working out. So whether that is dismantling your team completely and maybe centering it around Ben Simmons or Matisse Thybulle, or maybe centering it around Joel Embiid, I don't know. But this team isn't working. And we've been seeing that for 3+ years now. So why bother continuing with, this experiment when it's very clearly not working?
I like that how our patience level starts increasing year by year. Where it went from hey, 5 to 7 years is like reasonable, and now it's like 3. Okay, you're out of here.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I guess from that roster, who's the first person that they have to move?
That's the hard part, man, because it's just like, I don't know what the deal is with Ben Simmons. Like, I don't understand. You shut up, Kevin. You stop it. You stop it. It's so complicated because it's just like, Joel Embiid is not a bad player. He's still a very good player, even with the health risk. And Ben Simmons, like, yeah, he doesn't shoot the ball, but he still like makes a ton of fucking points. And he's an assist machine, He's a good player. He's a very good player. It's just they don't work together. So if Ben Simmons just won't shoot the ball, I might consider maybe trading him, which, in my personal opinion, you might get more bang for your buck for him because he's still young. And given maybe the right circumstance, maybe if you put him on the right team, the head coach can just get that shooting out of him. You never know. I mean, we really don't. I mean, if anything, you could move Ben Simmons away from that guard position and just make him a forward, make him a straight up forward because he's tall enough. He can do it. We've seen him do it. He moves in the paint very, very well. He could easily be like a 3 or 4. He doesn't really need to take 3-point shots. Move him to a team that will utilize him the best way possible. Moving Joel Embiid would be fine too. I know there's been a lot of talk with Miami possibly wanting to get him. I know Jimmy Butler really wants him on the team. That would be awesome. I don't know who you would get in return for that. Honestly, you would probably need to get a lot in return for that. But I don't know. If you're going to dismantle the team, the best option would be trading Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid.
Okay, that's good points. I guess in my thoughts, I'd probably dump that Tobias Harris contract because it's like he got for like. Don't get me wrong, like obviously talented compared to us, obviously because we're not in the league.
You think?
But like when you compare relative though that contract to other players, it just doesn't make sense. Like
sure.
You can already say that Jaylen Brown is already better than this guy, and Tobias Harris has been in the league for at least 7 or 8 years. Like Jaylen Brown has just been showing up, and he got his money obviously, but his money makes sense in the long run compared to Tobias Harris.
Yeah.
I took a different approach. You guys thought I'd probably take the Spurs, but I think that's too easy to demolish, right? We all know that we just got to demolish it, right?
They're getting old, man. They're getting old.
And look, and I agree. I want to dump the DeRozan. I don't want mid-range shots. I'm done with that. All right, that game's dead. All right.
MJ killed enough '90s basketball, Sam.
Yes. I don't need any more post play from LaMarcus Aldridge. Okay, no one plays post anymore. Okay, I love it, but no one does it anymore. We gotta change. But the team of real concern, the Sacramento Kings. Are you kidding me? How much of an embarrassment this organization has been over the past 2 decades. The last time this team had a chance was when Mike Bibby. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mike Bibby. Recommend looking up a picture.
I haven't heard that name in so long. My God.
This is the last time that came up, 2002, when they had a chance against the Lakers, where they got rigged by Tim Donaghy, which was a corrupted referee who worked for the mob because that owed a lot of money. Called a lot of fouls on the Kings when there was actually no contact at all, leaving the Lakers go for the 3rd championship in a row. With that being said, team fell apart probably around 2005. So in 15 years, what has this team done? Let me tell you, the best thing about this team is De'Aaron Fox. Awesome. Don't get me wrong. I love De'Aaron Fox, and I think he still has great potential. But what else is on this team? Buddy Hield, his numbers don't make sense for the max contract he gets. Sadly, I love Buddy Hield, but his contract doesn't make sense. And once again, Vlade Divac and Luke Walton, embarrassing coach, honestly. I'm not sure how he got the gig.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure because Buddy Hield's on the bench, which is like you're paying a max contract guy and putting him on the bench. Vlade said, I'm going to give you your money, but we're going to put you on the bench. You're going to ride with it. And what, the next max contract is Harrison Barnes? The guy got a ring and it was handed to him. He was a rookie. He didn't even try. This team is built based off of nothing. I honestly say the second best player on this team is Bogdan Bogdanovic, my boy Bogey. All right, this guy's great. He's not going to get his money because the Kings wasted it all on Buddy Hield and Harrison Barnes. Hopefully they have enough money to get De'Aaron Fox to stay because if I'm De'Aaron Fox, I want out. I want to go to Lakers. I don't care if we get paid less. I'm going to play with LeBron, alley-oops all day. All right, we're going to win it. Honestly, the owner doesn't care, which is annoying. Just being another fellow Indian guy, I'm like, I know you're cheap, but like, can you at least put some work? Like, come on.
Dang.
Look at their arena name, Golden Chick Arena. Who wants to be called Golden Chick Arena? Who wants to play there? Who wants to play Golden Chick Arena? Do you want to play there?
No, I don't.
You're cowards. God, it's the worst thing. Luke Walton, absolute garbage. Vlade Divac, great player, horrendous GM. The man picked Marvin Bagley over Luka Doncic. What are we doing? What are we doing as an organization? Please.
The age-old argument of Bagley versus Luka, and just the worst mistake possible that you could have made.
I was going to say that he is like the quintessential bad example of a player turning into an executive. Like, he was such a good player, and then as this GM for this team, he has made every wrong decision at every turn, every time.
Exactly. Yeah, he's like the
absolutely.
MJ of ownership, essentially. Yeah. Like, this is going to be an ESPN 30 for 30 soon, guys. I'm telling you, it's really going to happen.
Yeah, I think Marvin Bagley III isn't somebody that I would, tread too lightly on either. I think he has a lot of potential. Like, I know we shit on him all the time. He's not going to be better than Luka ever. There's no possible way. But, like, he's still a pretty good player. He's just been riddled with injury, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at this team, and like the best thing that they have for them is De'Aaron Fox, and then the color purple, because purple is awesome.
But not those jerseys.
Yeah, I know, right?
Sacktown, let's get it.
That's the worst. Jesus Christ. There's a lot of I would really like to see this team play well because I do like Buddy Hield, I do like De'Aaron Fox, I do like Bagley, and I do like Bogdanovich. But Luke Walton is a terrible coach. We saw that when he was on the Lakers. It wasn't just because of LeBron James; it was because he was an awful coach. Like this. If there was ever a team to blow it up, I think the Kings would be like the quintessential team to do it, just because of all this shit that that has gone wrong with them.
Fact. I guess with that, let's move on to our next segment, the courtroom.